This is a special Moment of Clarity interview with Peter Joseph, creator of the Zeitgeist film series, which then spawned the Zeitgeist Movement, also creator of the new series Culture in Decline. You can catch all of those on YouTube for free. And this was taped in Los Angeles. I'm currently in Indianapolis on part of my tour, but I hope you enjoy the interview. This is Peter Joseph. Given all the topics you take on, what makes you live in the anus of the Culture in Decline, Los Angeles?
Mass hypocrisy. Mass paradoxical hypocrisy.
Is that what it is? Do you like the city?
No. Well, this city
Or do you
is...
kind of feel like
the city is what it is.
it's the media center?
No, I don't feel that at all. I like the weather.
Yeah?
That's about it. And I need a major metropolitan area to get shit done in a certain way as far as production. And it was better than New York, which I lived in for 14 years, which after you're still there, of course. But
Right.
to me, it's just a big sewer. I can't handle it anymore. I did my time in the prison. I wanted to have some kind of quality of life that wasn't like this all the time and people spitting on me and stepping on shit. And so,
Right.
brutal.
So you exchange that for sunshine and fake people.
And fake tits.
Yeah. The Culture in Decline series is coming along. Are you happy with it?
I am happy with it. I'm happy with those that have contributed as well. It's whether it takes off, whether it stays the same, it's a personal catharsis once again, like everything that I do in one level or another. And I think it's the kind of thing that people will look back on a couple of years from now when they see how things have progressed. And they'll say, wow, this is equally as timely now as it was then, if not even more so. It's sort of the anticipation.
Do you think that we're capable of waking up? You see things like Hurricane Sandy, and it does seem to have a little effect. It's like, I feel like more people now say that climate change is happening than even a few months ago. But it's amazing it doesn't have more of an effect.
I think the correct word is climate destabilization.
Climate destabilization.
And it's what's happening is there's forces now that are being blown out, and conflict is being generated, hot and cold, obviously. And Hurricane Sandy has these roots and this conflict that's happening with obviously human effects. We're doing something to create more and more destabilization in the atmosphere, and people can argue about what that is, but you track the statistics, it's very clear what's happening. That's just one more characteristic of culture in decline. You have this whole culture of people that have been groomed to disrespect everything that is natural and decouple themselves from the natural world, the natural economy, which is basically a respect for the natural laws, the scientific elements, which you can't be too hard on people because science has only been with us for what? Really, about 900 years, maybe?
It's true. Give it
maybe.
some time.
It's,
Give it some time.
Even the famous Greeks had some pretty bad ideas, even though you consider them to be the heart of science when it comes to social relations and environmental relationships. So what do you expect? You have to see it that way. Simultaneously, it's also really grotesque. So do I have faith in it? Do I think that there's hope in all of this? Yeah, it's going to take a lot of suffering, most likely, before people can snap out of it, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is currently a lot of suffering and will continue to be, but I do feel like we're going through a slow awakening of sorts because of the fact that our media landscape has spread out, and you can have things like the Zeitgeist films, and people can get them, and it doesn't have to come through the mainstream media.
Well, yeah, I mean, technology has been the ultimate game changer of every medium, every genre you can think of. In fact, you could argue that the technological advancements, such as what you speak of, really have been the ultimate facilitator of cultural evolution entirely. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we'd still be with little sticks and stones, making holes so we can grow food. Life is very different now. So that's a good argument. Question is, how is it used? Is it used appropriately? Having the ability for free media in the way we do now has been very profitable for the upper echelon of society and simultaneously very threatening. Mm-hmm. So there's a double-edged sword that's happening, and if you look at policies now, there's a huge move now to clamp down on what the internet's doing. Yeah. And the powers that be. It's been in place for a while. A whole infrastructure change. It's already been known that all the emails that you send are being cataloged right now. Every single one in the United States going to a big database. They just take them all in. They're going to search them later if anyone gets on their nerves, and they go after them. Very different than tapping phones specifically.
But that's only for terrorists, right?
Oh yeah, of course. But nevertheless, it's amazing. It's an amazing time. In fact, I wouldn't pick any other time to be alive. It's an ultimate crossroad. There's so much happening that has such a positive nature to resolve problems and create prosperity, and it's such a massive threat to the traditional institutions. I mean, you couldn't pick better entertainment.
Right. You can't deny it's exciting.
No.
It's an exciting time.
Absolutely.
Do you ever wish, like, you had chosen to take on smaller issues, because then you can feel that direct influence immediately, whereas you in a lot of your movies and videos are taking on like the entire picture, the breadth of human experience.
Well, the smaller issues, if you track them, they don't resolve anything trying to go after them. They all, frankly, I think I'm taking on the smallest issue I can find, and that's the social system itself. Because if you look carefully, all the neurotic, decoupled, dehumanizing, ecologically indifferent behaviors that we see are stemming from this arcane view of ourselves, or arcane view of the way we interrelate to society. And it's all built perfectly into this socioeconomic model, the monetary market economy, call it whatever you want. So to me, it is the lowest common denominator. It's the smallest thing I can possibly think of that would actually create change legitimately for the long run.
Your next film you're working on this coming year, what can you say about that?
Into Reflections, the first of a new trilogy that's all live action. And it's going to be a big challenge for me to do this, very different. Basically, the documentary style that I've gone forward with in the Zeitgeist film series will be reallocated to the Culture in Decline series. Mm-hmm. And this new concept for a new trilogy based with live actors to show a fantasy relationship, an aesthetic relationship to inspire people for change is going to be the new direction that I want to go with, both artistically and cinematographically, and in a lot of ways activist oriented. You know, I've spent so many years being hardcore knowledge oriented,
right?
News programs, whatever, and you realize that there's something wrong with that. You have to use an aesthetic. That's where comedy and the arts really come into play as a social medium for change. Is you get under people's skin, you make them sort of feel like they're discovering ideas for themselves.
Right.
In fact, that's one of the most profound things I've ever heard someone say. Is you can't impose on people with ideas. You got to let them realize it for themselves. And that's a great way to talk to people. If anyone wants to use that advice, you can just don't impose. Just let them realize it for themselves, and then they don't have that ego strife where they feel like they've just taken something. They don't feel like they've lost their identity. They've gained something.
Right.
So this whole film series is basically about that.
There is noticeably more comedy and Culture in Decline than your previous documentaries. That's that same idea.
Yeah, except this really won't be comedy. There'll be comedic nuances. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of a parallel of fantasy. This will be, I guess, if you think of fantasy films that you've seen where reality is broken, mm-hmm. and you might feel like there's something that's actually a through line, and suddenly that through line breaks, and you're like, wait, what just happened? This is the kind of approach I'm having. I'm trying to think of I wouldn't say it's David Lynchy or anything like that. It's a little bit too far. I still need a train of thought to be consistent, but it's going to be abstract, but followable, and hopefully very enjoyable and epic enough that it really inspires people to sense these important issues and hopefully go out and do things for change, which is the ultimate point of everything that I do.
Yeah.
Even though I seem to deviate in many different ways.
What was your process in coming to these realizations? Was it slow? Was it like an epiphany? Was it?
It depends on which realizations. I mean, the cultural stuff, I always felt alienated. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people out there have felt alienated out of their lives. And one of the most common emails I get is, I felt so alone and obscure and out of sorts and alienated by the culture and the world until I saw your movies. And that's a great compliment. It goes to show that there's a lot of people out there, probably in insane asylums and probably in prison, that really just they couldn't accept the system. Yeah. And there's good reason for that, because it goes against some deep natural order elements. And all the neurotic behavior and mental disorders that are accelerating now are a testament to that. So to me, I was fascinated with religion. Religion I've studied since I was a little kid. Economics, I was a trader for many years, believe it or not. It's not something I readily admit. But I was, for about 6 years, as a private equity trader, I had the same evolution that many do. I wanted to get out of the corporate world. I wanted to be independent. I didn't give a shit who I stepped on or what necks I broke. And then it suddenly just came through to me after this catharsis working in advertising in 2007. All these things were happening in the world, and something just erupted. And to be perfectly frank, I don't know where it came from. It's sometimes things just happen in your brain as a confluence and you change.
So it does sound like it was kind of sudden.
Sudden, in a way it was. I could, retroactively in hindsight, I can see the roots of these issues. I always believed in a rational perspective, Right. But the confluence of like the social order, the water we swim in that we don't see, mm-hmm. I didn't see it. It wasn't. You don't see those things that are so obvious. The most profound things in our lives are the most obvious and unrecognized. And that was something I think I got a little bit more privy to.
Well, thank you, Peter.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.